solubility table before preparation of salts. So according to this solubility table, all sodium are soluble, all potassium are soluble, all ammonium are soluble, all nitrites are soluble, all chlorides are soluble except 2, and all sulfates are also soluble except 3. So technically we say the carbonates and hydroxides are insoluble, only the sodium, potassium and ammonium will be soluble. So for soluble salts we use two methods. One is the titration and other is using the excess metal, excess alkali or excess carbonates. So we can use with acid the excess metal, excess salt and excess carbonate. Okay. And what and it depends on the type of salts you are producing. For example, if you want to uh, make a salt which is soluble and you have both reactants soluble, then you would use titration where the both reactants are soluble. If one of the reactant is insoluble, like we have discussed that mostly hydroxides are insoluble, calcium hydroxide is insoluble, copper hydroxide is insoluble, then we have to use method number 2. Okay. And the third method is the precipitation one, which actually produces the insoluble salt. The product is insoluble, but the reactant would be soluble. Okay. So here is a question that we have. The question says that we have to prepare an insoluble, okay, this question is about insoluble salt lead bromide. A student using a precipitation method to prepare lead bromide. The equation is given. The student has used the lead nitrate and the sodium bromide, and as a reaction this is produced. Describe how she could use solution of lead nitrate and sodium bromide to obtain a pure dry sample of lead bromide. So first of all we need to discuss the reactants. Both reactants are soluble. It's written with them that these are aqueous, right? Whenever aqueous word is written, it means it's soluble. Okay. Reactants are soluble and she mixed them up, right? The second step would be she mixed both solutions. Okay, reaction occur, and as a reaction what is produced? Insoluble. Okay, what salt? Which salt is insoluble? Lead bromide. And what's the other thing which is produced? Okay, and what would be that, soluble or insoluble? Soluble sodium nitrate. Okay, now how would you separate this solid thing? Filtration. You will explain the filtration one, that we use a filter paper to separate the precipitates of lead bromide. And where would these be present? On the filter paper or in the filtrate? Where would they be present? On the filter paper or in the filtrate? Wait, wait. Okay. This is your filtration. This is a conical flask in which you use the filter paper. Okay. Whatever is remain on that filter paper is called as residue, which is solid, and the solution that goes inside is called as filtrate. Okay. So how do you get the lead chloride? On the filter paper, lead bromide on filter paper. Okay. What would be our next step? Okay. What about washing? Okay, we dry it after washing. Okay. Okay. Now this is a general method that we have used. Um, what instruments would be used? I've given you one of the instrument. Which instrument? I've given you a flask, okay, then a filter paper, a funnel. Okay, so you need to mention these apparatus as well. Okay, because it's a like a whole process, so it should be very detailed one. Okay, let me give you one tricky question then. Shall I? Um, yes, we have done this. I'm not sure, but it seems like we done this. I don't know. Let's see. Um, do you know how to carry out experiment? The variables or the constants? What are the variables of an experiment? Which things would be constant? Okay, okay, good. Okay, this is a question. It's of 7 mark in your paper, in your past paper. Okay. The question is, calcium react with cold water. The equation is given. State two observations that are made when calcium reacts with water. Water. Okay, what are the observations? What are the like visible things that you can see? Okay, bubbles. Bubbles, okay. Bubbles of gas. What else? Okay, look at their states and then tell me. Look at their states. Look at calcium. It's solid, but in the product there is no solid. So solid would disappear. Exactly, solid would dissolve. So this is a general question in such like type of question that what are the different observations? So these two are the most common observations. You might say that the solid appear if the reaction happen in case of precipitation, or in case of soluble salts where the soluble salts are made. So you can tell that the solid disappear, the reactant disappear. Okay, so here the calcium disappear. Okay, explain a possible value of pH for this solution. What do you think? What would be pH if it's calcium hydroxide? Yes, so its pH value would be more than 7 or greater than 7. Okay, now we have a simple a reaction. Let's focus on this. Here we have calcium carbonate. We burn it up. It produces a solid. This is thermal decomposition. We did this already. What does thermal decomposition produce? We did this in the extraction of iron. And wait, let's break it. Calcium carbonate. Carbon dioxide got eliminated. What left? What is left? Wait. Calcium oxide, right? Calcium oxide. Okay, solid is calcium oxide. This calcium oxide then dissolved in water to make calcium hydroxide. Okay? Now, calcium hydroxide is added to HCl. We have to do the reaction of calcium hydroxide with HCl. What would be your product? This is alkali and acid. What is produced by the reaction of alkali and an acid? what salt would be produced? What would be the name of salt? Good. Calcium chloride. So you can write the name, you can write the formula. So the formula is, what would be the formula? Formula of calcium chloride. CaCl2. Okay. Now, calcium hydroxide also react with carbon dioxide. What would it produce? Excellent. Calcium carbonate. What would be formula of calcium carbonate? Yes, it's written in the start. Good. Okay, so you get this type of question. Okay, let's move to another question. Okay, let me just take a screenshot for this one. Um, couldn't see the last word. Okay. Now there is a diagram given, and then there are bubbles of gas. You have to tell which one is most reactive and which one is least reactive, and why do you think so? Okay, this is a question. You have different number of bubbles. The first one is when metals react with cold water, and the second one is when metal reacts with acids. Okay, so name two metals that can react with cold water among these. Good. Calcium and magnesium. Name one metal that react with dilute hydrochloric acid but not with cold water. Iron. You can also name zinc. Okay. What is their reactivity? What do you think is the most reactive? Which one is the least reactive? Calcium is the most reactive. Okay. Then, okay, magnesium. Wait, then zinc. Then iron. And the copper is the least reactive one. Okay, good. Um, Sorry, I'm taking time to get the questions. Just give me a minute. Okay, so we are basically doing the past paper questions, okay? Okay, the question is a magnesium powder is added to dilute sulfuric acid. Let's write magnesium plus H2SO4, okay? In a test tube, a colorless solution is formed and a gas is given off. When more magnesium is added, the reaction continues for a while, then stops, leaving some magnesium powder in the test tube. When a flame gas is placed on the mouse, it will burn with a squeaky pop sound. So, what would be the gas produced? You can even write the reaction. What would be gas? Hydrogen gas. Okay. Why the reaction stopped when you added more metal? And we have did this in like the preparation of salt. When we are adding excess metal and there is metal left at the end. Why is that excess metal left? Or why the reaction stop? Good. Because the acid, all acid has reacted. We have to write it chemically, so we have to use the word reacted. Okay, what's the name of colorless solution? Okay, tell me the products that are formed. Hydrogen and magnesium sulfate. So what would be the colorless solution? Magnesium sulfate. Okay, how could you separate the magnesium powder from the colorless solution? Quite easy. Filtration. Okay, in some fireworks, magnesium powder reacts quickly with oxygen in the air, and this reaction produces heat energy. What is the term we use when the energy is produced? Exothermic reactions. Name the compound formed when magnesium react with oxygen. Let's see. Magnesium plus oxygen, magnesium oxide. Correct? Okay. Now there is formation of salt. Okay, I have a question for you for like the insoluble salts. Okay, the question is here. Several methods are used to prepare salt. The method chosen depend on whether the salt is soluble or insoluble. Okay, so we have prepared an insoluble salt which is silver nitrate. Oh, sorry, insoluble salt is prepared by mixing silver nitrate and sodium chloride. Both are soluble. Nitrates are soluble and chlorides are soluble. Let me write it. Silver nitrate, sorry, AgNO3 and sodium chloride, NaCl. So what would be produced? Good, silver chloride and nitrate, excellent. Sodium nitrate. So what would be insoluble salt? Silver chloride, good. So the chemical equation we have already written. What if we want to put the state symbols? What symbols should we put over here? AQ. Okay, what about here? Okay, good. Okay. Then the next equation is the chemical equation for the preparation of insoluble lead sulfate is given. You have to tell the state symbol. Okay, aqueous. Then next sodium sulfate is aqueous. Okay, okay, aqueous. Good. Okay, then the next method, I guess we have done this. I'm not sure. We did one of the question related to the titration, right? Um, I'm not sure whether we did this or not. Um, just give me a minute. I'll check in the notes that I've shared with you whether we did this question or not. Just give me a minute. Okay?